joining us today. My name is Alan Perez, working with the media and content team here at Set Schedule. Welcome to today's episode of Meet the Agent. It's definitely going to be a special one because today joining me is Tammy Sawyer, an expert real estate agent who services the Dallas, Fort Worth, and greater surrounding areas. Tammy works with the JP and Associates brokerage, and she is an absolute delight to get to work with and speak to. Tammy, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well.
Glad to hear it. And so here, what I really want to be able to do is pick your brain, Tammy, because I have to say, you're definitely one of the agents that I've met that, there's not a lead that doesn't like you, as far as I know. As long as they've been able to actually make contact with you, a lot of the times they do end up working with you.
Right.
And as I mentioned in the intro, you do work predominantly with first-time buyers, which I understand is a demographic that can be very rewarding, but also very challenging. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you work with first-time buyers specifically?
I like first-time buyers because they're just like a sponge. They soak everything up. And I usually what I do with a first-time buyer is I ask them their criteria and I set them up with a search, or they may even send me your text or call me and tell me a home they want to see. Well, then once I go with them, I question them a little bit more about their needs. As I guess a good example of that is I just got a lead from Set Schedule, and she's a first-time home buyer, and she was looking at a 3-bedroom, 1-bath property. And she has 2 little girls, and I just pointed out to her that in the future, 1 bathroom is not going to work for them. I mean, it's just not. And I told her, I thought, honestly, I think we can find something within her price range that's maybe a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It may not have everything she desires, but it'll be comparable to what she likes. I find it really rewarding because when you have a first time buyer, once you go out and show them, I lay out the expenses. I tell them within the option period what's going to happen. I tell them, how much they would have to put down as earnest and option money. And then I tell them about how we have to get the inspection, we have to get the appraisal, and we also have to get, we have to go back and look at that inspection report and figure out what is the most important thing. I always tell my clients, don't nitpick. If it's something that you can do yourself, then do it. Look for the big items such as, plumbing, AC, things like that. And I love it because they're so eager and they're just appreciative. I mean, that doesn't mean that other clients aren't appreciative, because that's not the case. I just think with first time home buyers, the one I have, I mean, bless her heart, she's so precious, and she texts me all the time and says, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm not looking for that accolade, but I appreciate working with them because I know they're going, I don't like having somebody settle for something when I know it's not going to work for their family. And I always tell them the market is tough. It really is. It's still a seller's market, but you've got to be patient, because I don't want that person to move into that home and 6 months down the road go, God, I hate that lady. I wish she hadn't sold me that, or talked me into it. Because I always tell them, I'm not making the house payment. You are. So you have to be 100% on board, because you're paying for it.
Definitely. Actually, and so here, this is something that I want to be able to touch on a little bit more. Thank you so much for all that insight, by the way, Tammy. I mean, it's amazing what you're able to share with us. And I think that part of what I want to delve into a little bit more is specifically the amount of information that you're able to share with your prospects. As you just mentioned, you're able to basically lay it out from start to finish, make sure that they are aware of all factors that will go into the equation. My question for you is, how do you make sure that you do that at the right pace? Because I've met many an agent who will scare off their prospect because they will start talking about all that whole process in the first call, for the first cold call where they were able to actually get in touch with them.
No. No, I mean, you have to go out with them. You have to earn their trust. They need to see if you are the fit for them, because not all the time are you the fit for that person or that family. I guess a good example of that is I got a lead from y'all. Set Angel, yay! But anyway, I got a lead for her, and they liked me at first because I'm open and honest. I always say, look at the complete neighborhood. I'm not steering anybody, but I don't want them to be, there again, I don't want them to move in and 6 months down the road, hate the neighborhood. And so she liked me then. And then we went to look at another house. And all I did was say, well, what did you think about that home? And she thought I was being pushy. And so, needless to say, she told me she did not need my services. I understand. I do not take it personal. My personality doesn't gel with everybody's personality. I am pretty much I like to talk, obviously. And and I like making friends out of my clients. I mean, it's like I was telling you, the saddest thing to me is when you come to closing and you're probably never going to see them again, but I have had the privilege of them giving my name to other people as a referral because they liked me and they trusted me. So, it's my goal to I always tell my clients, I'm going to treat you like I would my family. I'm not going to let my family make a wrong decision, nor am I going to let you make a wrong decision. And that's just how I am. I mean, I hug my clients when it's over with. I even hugged them during COVID. I'm like, I know it's COVID, but I have to hug you.
Fantastic. And so, I mean, this is something that I've said to you, I mean, at least a couple of times previously, but I feel like you definitely are the epitome or the definition of relational. I hesitate to use the word selling, right? Because selling has that negative connotation to it, but it very much is that relational building and ultimately mentoring.
Right.
And I think that that's why you have that such attachment, and why so many prospects and then clients that you work with will move on and refer you out.
Right. And that's your
Now,
ultimate goal as an agent, is to get, I mean, I love set schedule referrals, but the greatest gratitude that you could ever have is when they say, I'd like for you to work, I'd like for you to work with my blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh my gosh, thank you. To me, that's gratitude. That confirms to me I did my job. I take my job very seriously. I mean, I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about my clients, because I had a client not long ago. I couldn't remember if I sent him an email about something, and I sent it at 1:45, and he texts me the next morning and he goes, really? You sent that to me at 1:45? I'm like, look, I can't sleep. I worry. And he was like, okay.
fantastic. And again, I mean, that anecdote in and of itself really encapsulates the fact that for you, real estate is not a hobby. It very much is a passion,
No,
right?
right.
And something that
Yeah.
we've heard many times, right, is if you do something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Well, and I mean, even with clients, I sometimes clients can't, they can't remove themselves from the people's decor
Mhm.
or their furniture. And I love to go in and say, okay, you could put this right here. You could put your couches right here. Because I've had several of them say, you need to be an interior decorator. And I'm like, no, I can't. But I mean, I always pull up like some major companies that I, have bought from myself and show them. And I'll be like, see, look at this. This would go right there. And my clients, they love that.
Yeah, and it's because I think ultimately what you're really doing in that situation is you're helping them envision themselves really live in the home, even if it's just mentally for a little while where you're actually inside it, to open up and be able to say, what would it actually look like for me to live here? Because again, if you are a first-time home buyer, it's the first time that you've ever considered living in a property, right? And so for some people, it's, yeah.
And sometimes you go in. I had one of my clients, that the one who laughed and said you emailed me at 1:45. I mean, we looked at a little house and it's perfect for him. And I said, why don't you because there was a wall, like you walked in and there was a den and then there's a wall. And I said, you know what I would do? I said, I would either take that wall halfway down or take it out completely. And I said, so when you walk in, you have an open concept. And he said, yeah, I could do that. I mean, it's little things like that, and I'm not saying women are better agents than men, but women tend to look at a decorating aspect of it as well versus, yeah, it's got 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, blah, 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 and I'm the kind of person I can go in and see the potential of something.
Definitely. And I mean, that's what real estate and especially mentoring first-time buyers really is about, right? Getting people excited for the potential of something, getting them to realize, what is actually possible, what could I actually accomplish, and how much better could my situation be when I decide to take my space and say, this is what I'm doing with it. And so in that way, I would say that you're almost empowering your prospects, right? To really command their surroundings. I mean, something that I studied in college is that very much the surroundings that you find yourself in very much do affect your mindset, even sometimes affecting your mood and your personality to a certain extent.
Absolutely, because you want to walk in that home and you want to feel at ease. You don't want to walk in there and go, oh my gosh, I hate this, I hate that, blah, blah, blah. You just don't want to do that. And I don't want that for my clients at all. A good example of that is I had a new build in Irving, and we went to look at it numerous times, and there was a seriously big dog. And the people's doghouse was where, I mean, there was a good amount of space between that fence and theirs. But when their kids were in the yard with us, that dog focused on them. And I told them, I said, as a mother and a grandmother, I said, that would concern me. And they said, I would seriously go and talk to that neighbor. And I said, and if they're not willing to do something, then I would suggest you put up more fencing so that dog never has the ability to cross that fence and attack your children. And they appreciated that.
Fantastic. And I mean, this is one of the many illustrations that has shown me that for you're very much detail oriented, and you are also empathetic to the point where you very much do actually walk in your client's shoes. Because I mean, in this story, in the other story about the bathrooms and the limitations and the issues that would cause, you're living as your client for a certain amount of time. You're thinking, if that was me, which is amazing. I mean, again, I think that's the distinction between what makes a fantastic realtor who has this as their passion versus somebody who's just trying to move forward but can't get that connection with their prospects.
Right. No, you have to connect with those people. You have to understand why they want things and why they don't want certain things. You have to connect with them on an emotional basis so that you're able to understand them better. It's like a psychologist, you go in and you tell him all this stuff, but unless he connects with you and understands the things that you're saying, that's not going to do them. You're wasting your time and money. And that's how I feel. I don't want my clients to ever think that I am wasting, their time, because their time is just as important as my time is. And I just think that's important as an agent, especially a new agent. I think sometimes as a new agent, you're so worried about the paperwork and getting every I dotted and every T crossed, that you tend to lose your focus, which is your clients.
Definitely. And elaborating on that a little bit more, this is something that I believe I've asked you previously, but how is it that you're able to get an honest needs analysis or an honest list of deal breakers from your first time home buyers? Because, I mean, again, for them, in my understanding, it's more of a fluid process where it very much is, I'm going to look at houses until I see one that I like. And that's usually how people start thinking about what property they could ultimately see themselves in. So how are you able to better get a list of deal breakers or, problem issues that people won't be able to live with?
Probably because, especially if it's a couple, I listen to what the wife says. She may open the door and go, this, man, this layout isn't going to work. Well, then if you can come up with a way, if they like the house, all the rest of the property, come up with a way that you could give them an idea, kind of like the wall. Give them an idea of what they could do to it to make then the whole property fit their needs.
And so it sounds like, because again, paying attention to that level, to say, we're doing a home walkthrough currently, and the husband or the wife, I mean, whoever it is, mentioned something in passing in one of the rooms, you take that criticism or that uncertainty seriously, right? So it's almost like no concern goes unheeded when working with you.
Well, and it's like my client that I have under contract now. I mean, I knew he needed to pull his truck and his trailer because he does a lot of home projects around and be able to get it in the backyard, because he didn't want to leave it in the driveway or the street. And so that told me we had to eliminate new homes, because new homes are all too close together. So what we did was we looked at older homes, and we found a really good older home that even already has a double gate. And then all he has to do is just pour the concrete, remove a tree, and he's back there. So you have to listen, because he and his wife and I would laugh about the yard. With him, we'd be like, oh no, he's a yard snob. But I don't mean that literally, but we told him that. But I knew what he was looking for. So, because I would see him, that's the first thing he would do when he got out of the car. He would look at the sides of the house. So I remembered that. And so even when she would send me homes, I'd be like, that yard's not going to work. You just have to pay attention to details. And I think sometimes it's hard. I mean, I'm not telling you I did that at first at all. I think it's something that you acquire over a period of time with your clients. There again, I treat my clients just like I treat my family. I want them to be happy. I don't want them to ever say, gosh, I wish I hadn't used her.
Exactly. And that comes down to, I think, the responsibility that comes with a company's mentorship, right? Because that's something that we don't necessarily hear too much about, but exactly like you mentioned, you don't want to end up helping somebody make a mistake, right? It's something that, exactly. I mean, even for me and my family, and I think that with some of the more heated discussions that I'll get into, right, it's always because of that aspect of caring behind it, where it's, hey, I want to make sure you don't do something that you're going to regret later on.
Right. Because, I mean, I wouldn't do that to my family. It's the same way. I've been through several lenders, but I'm like, if I give you a client's name, I expect you to respond to them at that moment. And I've been through a lot of lenders because they can't do it. And I'm like, I'm not giving you my business if you don't follow through with my clients. Time is essence. You have to move on that. And I mean, I take it personal from the very beginning to the closing.
Fantastic. That's something that I'd like to be able to have you discuss a little bit more for me, Tammy. How do you find peers, right, or other professionals that you're going to need to work with, your inspectors, your title and loan officers, your mortgage brokers? How do you find professionals that are at the same caliber as yourself? How do you know that they'll be cut from the same cloth? Is it really just trial and error?
It is. Because like I said, I've been through a lot of lenders. I also have used several inspection companies, but I know which company is going to respond within the timeline needed, and they get me the report that day. And I mean, that comes, and I like how the reports are formatted. They're very easy to read, and then they have like a summary that goes through the things for you. So then you're not flipping through there trying to look, at each picture, and they break it down. The same thing with anything you have to hire. You have to go through them. And any agent will tell you that we all have our favorites, but it takes time to get those, because you meet people all the time that say, oh, here's my card, I do blah 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 blah. Well, it's kind of like, it's not that you don't want to give them an opportunity, but if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. If that works for you, then stick to it. Keep those people, because you appreciate them just as much as they appreciate you giving them the opportunity to serve your clients.
Definitely. I mean, at that point, it becomes very synergistic, to use
Yes.
a new
Yes.
agey term, but I feel like that's definitely what it is. Fantastic. And so now here we are getting a little bit close to the end of our time here, Tammy. Thank you so much for having shared all the background that you've shared with us so far. A couple of last questions for you here. I do recall, actually, one of my favorite topics to discuss here is the cross applicability of skills that you would develop in places that you wouldn't necessarily expect, right? Could you elaborate a little bit on, or rather share with us, what is it that you were doing before you had actually entered the real estate industry?
I did help my husband, who is a real estate agent, but I also did medical billing for about 25 years. So I understood the process from the beginning to the end, even with a patient. I knew how to explain the procedure. I knew how to tell them, what was going to be billed to the insurance company and what was going to be their responsibility. So I just think when you're dealing with the medical public, it it definitely gives you, because they can be obstinate. I mean, they can, and they don't want to pay. And I understand that. But you also have to explain to them that that is part of the payment that their insurance company deems is your responsibility. So I think that has helped me a lot. Probably wasn't quite as compassionate as I am now, but um, it's still a process. It's a process with the client from the beginning to the end. You can't just decide, wing it. They'll call you, blah, blah, blah. You can't do that. You have to I don't care if it's your second, third, or fourth home. People tend to forget what the process is, and you have to still walk them through, whether it's brand new home buyers or established home buyers. Even, if you're selling a home, you still have to walk them through what's required of them, and what you have to explain to them, what you can suggest. I'll put it to you that way. What would make their home sell? Look at it objectively, but let them understand that you're there for them. You're trying to help them. And I just think that's the whole point of being an agent, is to help people and have a relationship with them. I mean, seriously, I hate closing days. I mean, I'm just like, no. It's kind of a, catch 22. I like them, but I don't like, because I know I'm just not going to see them anymore. And I make friends out of my clients.
Fantastic. And again, thank you so much, Tammy, for all of the information that you've been able to share. I mean, it's just an absolute delight to be able to speak with you. Now, here, my last two questions for you. I mean, throughout the entire episode that we've been discussing, you've been able to share a lot of wisdom. To cap off what we're discussing, do you have any last tidbits of wisdom that you want to share with any first-time agents or any agents who may be struggling in generating business currently?
I think at first, especially when you're right out of school and you've gotten your license, I think because you had to cram so much into the little time that it takes to get your license, that you're like a robot. You're just like, you remember all the terms, you remember all the, everything they taught you, but it's totally different out there in the field, and I think you have to relax and sit back and really listen to your client and absorb what they're telling you. Because if you continually take them to properties that you've suggested that's not on their criteria, they're not going to stick with you. They're going to find somebody else. I've had numerous clients say to me, oh my gosh, I had this other agent and they kept sending me stuff I didn't want. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. It's a waste of your time and my time. But no, and I'm a very appreciative to set schedule. I'm like, I love you guys.
And we love you too, Tammy. And last quick question that I wanted to ask to you. Do you have any last information, any message that you would want to share with any prospects or any people that are thinking about working with an agent out in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area?
Come to me. I'll talk you to death, but I'll get the job done. No, I think there again, I think you need to find an agent who fits your personality as well as understands your needs. And to me, if an agent isn't doing that, then they're not doing their job. And I don't mean that derogatory, but I'm saying you have to step back and listen. And for me, that's really hard because I'm talkative. But no, and I mean, I listen to them. And when you're walking around, I hear what they tell you and I remember it. And that to me is the most important thing, is having confidence in you as an agent and knowing that you can trust me all the way through it. And I always tell my clients at closing, I said, I'll remind you at the first of the year to homestead, and I'm here for you. Don't think because we closed, you cannot ever contact me about something. I'm going to always be here. And they're like, well, thank you. But that's the truth. You have to still be there for them.
Definitely. And thank you so much again, Tammy, for all the information that you've been able to share. For our viewers and our listeners at home, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Meet the Agent. Don't hesitate to send us your feedback. You can also message us directly on most forms of social media. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks again.